Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Evan Duckett, vocalist for the band Final Declaration. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, caffeinated crew? Today, I'm joined with Evan, Final Dec, Final Declaration. I love saying Final Dec though. It's just got a nice roll off.
Yeah, that's what we say too.
Final Declaration. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm sipping, one of my favorite fresh coffees as you instructed. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. So.
I hate that I feel like I have to highlight that, but just some people don't catch it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like this time of day, I'm always sipping a coffee anyway. But it's extra important for something like this.
Yes, it is very important.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that you've got some sun going on. We've got kind of sun going on. It's still bright, but Montreal is always bright during the summer. So
yeah,
it's nice and sunny coffee weather. What are you drinking? Because I see it's iced.
It is iced. So I am, first and foremost, I am iced always. There are very rare occasions where I will drink a hot coffee, like a hot latte every so often, but like not even on like a monthly basis. For the most part, hot beverages for me are a thing of function. So like if it's single digit temperatures outside, I have a hot coffee. If it's anything above that, it can still be bitter cold. I'm still cold. And then, sometimes like a hot tea before bed or something. So what I'm rocking today is we have a local coffee shop and roaster here called Public Espresso. Really, really good coffee. They use this, Bellwether zero emissions coffee roaster. And they were like the first ones in the Western New York area to do it. So I remember walking into their shop one day and they just had this like machine in the dining room, like against the wall. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, that's where we roast our coffee in now. And I'm like, no vent on it. And they're like, yeah, because no emission. It's crazy. So this is cold brew from them mixed with fresh squeezed lemonade that they also make. It's my first one of the season. Because they don't do the fresh squeezed lemonade year round. It's a summer thing. And yeah, once the warm, sunny weather hits, cold brew with lemonade is like one of my go-tos.
I keep trying to put people on to the cold brew and lemonade.
Dude, it's, the thing about it is, and admittedly, I'm the same way. The first time I ever had it, like the first couple sips you have, what your brain tells you is this the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth? And then you're like, but I have this and I'm going to push through it. And by the time you get to the end of the cup, it's like your brain rewires and it's like, oh, that's super refreshing and really good. And then you just crave it whenever it's warm. It's like this crazy learning curve.
Yeah. It's a weird, it's like, assimilation almost effect.
Yeah. Because it's such a strange sensation, right? Because like, especially fresh squeezed lemonade is like, it's not overly sweet. Like it's more on the tart side. So you've got this like tart sort of bitter citrusy with coffee. And it's like, it shouldn't work, but it's the same thing as like, orange juice with a shot of espresso. And if people love, like, sounds insane. It's really good.
Yes. The orange juice with espresso is definitely like, it has ties back to Italian culture. So
yep.
Can't hate on that one too hard.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's I've been doing at the cafe that I've been working at. We have like a lemonade slush that we do for the summer.
Oh, very cool.
And I've been trying to convince people to try cold brew lemonade slush.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few people on board, but it's a hard sell.
That sounds good. One of the best cups I ever had was one time when we played Cleveland. There's a coffee shop right down the street from the venue. It's called Six Shooter Coffee.
Mhm.
And I was just, like we got to the venue, it's only like a 3-hour drive to Cleveland. So it's like not bad, but like I was, feeling like I needed something. And I was looking up coffee around and I saw the name Six Shooter Coffee on Google Maps. And I think what immediately triggered in my mind is like, oh, this is going to be like some like redneck, like MAGA dork coffee shop. But I walked down and it's actually like this all woman owned coffee collective. And they've got this wallpaper with all these illustrations of like rattlesnakes and cowboy hats with like old 6-shooter guns and stuff. And their deal is they have 6 nitro taps there. So at all times, they have like 6 different nitro draft things going on, like a regular coffee. And they always have like a cider, like an apple cider, like flavored on there. But then they've always got 4 like specialty nitro cold brew flavors on draft. And the day we went in there, like they had one that was like, they called it like a Werther's one. So it was like a butterscotch, whatever. But the one that like piqued my interest was, it was called Lime Swizzle.
Ooh.
And it was a nitro cold brew with like a really intense limeade flavor to it.
Ooh.
And like lemonade and coffee, one thing. Lime, whole different ball game and really good. And I've kind of been chasing that coffee high ever since.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. That's a hard wreck because I have never heard. My dad lives in Akron and he's never told me about this place.
Okay, yeah. So there's a venue there called Beachland. It's like the Beachland Ballroom and the Beachland Tavern. It's like the smaller side. And it's like right down the street from there. It's in like the Cleveland suburbs, like right before Cleveland proper. Like a lot of shows happen there.
Sick.
It's like a big venue for shows. And 6-shooter coffee. It's dope.
Hell yeah. Well, respect to that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll let you know what I'm drinking. I have something from Quebec City. I've had their coffee before. I was a big fan. They just changed their branding a bit, which is cool. Not that they needed to before because it was already cool, but it's called Nordik. Micro roaster or micro torrefacteur in French. It's a Jostima natural from Kenya. It's just a natural Kenyan coffee with some of the heirloom varietals, and then it's got cranberry, licorice, and juicy notes. It's on the
sounds nice.
Very, very light side. So
yeah, sounds nice. Is the Nordik name, is that like a throwback reference to the Quebec Nordiques?
I'm so happy that you know that.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Is that like where the name comes from?
I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from, but it's Nordik with a cool K. Like it's like all
interesting
looking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. But it's gotta be like that. Yeah. Very cool.
There's like this weird shop across the street from my house. It's kind of like I don't know how to describe it, like a tchotchke store. It's got a bunch of random like shit and jerseys and fireworks and stuff. Don't ask me why.
Sounds sick.
It's really weird and I'm scared to go inside. I've never been in there.
Oh, it sounds awesome. It sounds like the kind of place that if I'm driving down the highway somewhere and I see it like roadside, like by a truck stop, I'm getting off the highway to go.
Right. So that's the kind of vibe, but it's in the middle of downtown. I don't know why.
Very cool.
But for a while in the window, they had an old Nordiques jersey hanging up.
Oh, very cool.
And I'm like, it's probably too expensive. But if I bought it, I would get so much respect for being somebody from Georgia that wears a Nordiques jersey.
Yeah. One of the best like uniform sets in the history of hockey. So cool.
Yeah. Such a shame. Even though we got their mascot, we got UP.
Yeah.
For the Habs.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, people should be giving me points. I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and I know that much about hockey already.
I didn't realize you weren't Canadian.
Yeah. I've been on the hunt for a Thrashers jersey for a while now.
Dude, Thrashers gear was dope. And now they're talking about expansion going back to Atlanta eventually, potentially. So maybe the Thrashers name gets revived.
I think there's space. Atlanta's becoming like a big sports hub. We got Atlanta United has been popping off.
Yeah.
The Braves have had a huge resurgence because of the World Series. Like,
yeah. They built that ridiculous dome.
They really did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've never visited, but it looks sick from the outside. It looks like a spaceship.
Yeah. It's crazy. People call the the roof Megatron's butthole. Is it like it's all the metal and it like swirls around into the point? It's really funny.
It really does look like a mechanical sphincter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. That's like, I'm really happy to know that you are on the coffee third wave vibe.
Yeah.
Because I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes it's hit or miss with the coffee, and sometimes it's Tim Hortons, you know?
So here's the thing though. Like I love good coffee, but I'm not one of these people that like, it has to be like a craft roast or like I don't have to know the roaster. Like I don't fuck with Tim Hortons coffee. Which is funny because, and I know you like talked to Lexi about that when she was on, because it's at this point, there's like borderline, I think more Tim Hortons in Buffalo than there is in Canada. It's actually crazy. Like sometimes they'll be on like corners across from each other. Coffee sucks. The food's really good at Tim Hortons in America, honestly. But like, I love Dunkin', especially the Dunkin'. They built a Dunkin' down the street from me. And like the new ones, they're putting like nitro cold brew draft taps and stuff in it. And like their nitro is actually like solid.
Mm-hmm.
And I also fuck with McCafe coffee at McDonald's. Which I think is partly because if I understand it right, the company that used to roast Tim Hortons coffee in the United States back when it was like decent, that's who roasts McDonald's coffee now. So like what you're getting at McDonald's in the States is actually the original Tim Hortons coffee. So like I'll get down with that. Like right now, obviously Starbucks is like a touchy subject, but like normally I'm down with Starbucks coffee. So like I'll kind of drink anything, like as long as it's iced and like not horrible, like I can get down with it.
Okay. So this knowing that you do like nitro and iced coffee, ice and nitro, is it a sin?
I don't think it's a sin. Obviously, like part of the point of nitro is that it's cold as fuck when it comes out. So, I don't know. Like, I guess if you're getting a cup of nitro and you're gonna like nurse it and sip it for a while, ice is fine to me in it because it's just gonna keep it cold longer.
Right.
But if I'm just like sitting down and just drinking it, like no ice, like there's no reason for it because I've got nitro chilled coffee already.
It's cold from the nitrogen.
Exactly. So I think ice is only something in it for function if like you need it to still be cold like an hour later kind of thing.
I vibe with that.
Yeah. But I love nitro.
Yeah, I've brought nitro to the shop I'm working at now, and I'm also trying to. It's hard. There's people in Montreal are very set in their ways when it comes to coffee, and I'm sure Buffalo,
because they're basically European.
Thank you for like recognizing that. Yeah,
and Europeans are famously like resistant
and snooty about certain things. Yeah. They love their espresso.
Yeah. Right.
When I say that on purpose.
I
don't mean to be stereotypical whatsoever, but you're a food guy?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard that there's contests on wings. You're from Buffalo. Buffalo wings are from Buffalo, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're supposed to have the little like joint on the wings or off?
Oh, like the whole wing with like the extra piece?
Yeah.
So I have no problem with them being on. And actually, if we're being honest, what's happening here right now, it's pretty cool. For like decades, the narrative has been that the Anchor Bar here is like where wings originated.
Right.
That's actually not true. There was a black man on the east side of Buffalo named John Young who had a deli and it was called Wings and Things, and he would serve chicken wings with, it wasn't like a buffalo sauce, like the buffalo sauce. Yeah, that came from Anchor Bar because they just, threw Frank's hot sauce and butter together.
Right.
His was like a more tomato based sauce that he called Mambo sauce. But he like predated Anchor Bar, and now his daughter or granddaughter has revived the Mambo sauce, and she'll do pop-ups like once a month at there's this place on the east side here called Broadway Market that's like a legendary buffalo place that gets really, really active during Easter. It's where everybody goes to buy their butter lambs and their hams and everything. Mm-hmm. But like it kind of sits like half empty the rest of the year other than Easter time at this point. It used to be like a bustling hub. And she will like once a month do a pop-up with the original Mambo sauce wings there. And those are the whole wing. They're not with the piece split off. So if we're getting into like minutia of chicken wings, like the actual original wing was the whole wing. That being said, like I don't know of a single other place in Buffalo that serves them like that. There's some places that are like really well-known wing places, other parts of the country that do. Like in Kansas City, there's a place called the Peanut. It's like a dive bar. And their wings are really well known, and they serve the whole wing kind of thing. But in Buffalo, you're almost never walking into somewhere and getting wings with the whole thing on.
So I watched that documentary that came out about the Mambo sauce and like the original. I can't remember if it was with Vice or Munchies or
it was one of those.
It was one of those cool alt documentary channels. Sure. So I remember watching that, and then the Anchor Bar basically taking the Frank sauce.
Yep.
I was hoping that the daughter had a permanent location by now, because she started doing that not too long ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, she sort of revived it. I don't know if it's like if she wants to do it full time or what's going on, but yeah, she does the pop up like once a month usually, and it's good stuff. It's good wings.
So which flavor do you prefer?
So for a long time, I wanted hot barbecue pretty much everywhere. Like that was my go-to if they had it. That being said, what I believe are the best wings here actually is a place called the 911 Tavern. It's like a cash only kind of hole in the wall bar in South Buffalo. And all they serve is wings, chicken fingers, French fries, and corned beef sandwiches. And they only serve wings hot, medium, mild. Nothing else. No specialty flavors. Nothing. Ooh. And their hot sauce is just like the best wing sauce I've ever had. It's like a traditional buffalo sauce, but it's got minced garlic and Parmesan cheese in it.
Yes, sir.
So it's got like a little bit of an extra flavor. And those are just like the perfect wing.
Oof.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten this morning. This is making me very hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So here in Montreal, wings are bad.
I
don't know if you've ever experienced it, if you've ever been here.
I've been to Montreal. I've not eaten wings there.
So the first time I ordered wings, we ordered buffalo, and they brought out wings that were fried naked, and the sauce was on the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why is the sauce on the side?
Yeah, right.
That felt very wrong.
Like you had to do half the work yourself.
I had to dip it, and it's not coated right. So I got to dip too much sauce on the wing. So
yeah, that's rough.
I don't know if I've had this discussion with another person about the buffalo wings. I think I talked to John about it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he kind of said Anchor Bar and stuff, but it's good to know that
he's also vegan. So
yeah, see, that was the thing. Is he's like, a lot of people like this place, and I'm like, well, I need the facts, boss. I can't take a vegan's frame of reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know that there's crazy places to eat in Buffalo, because
Dude, Buffalo has this insane food scene. I talk about it to people not from here all the time. Because not only does Buffalo have like its like staples, but Buffalo, because it's such an immigrant community, you can get a super authentic, there's at least one place in the city that does a super authentic version of kind of any cuisine from anywhere in the world that you could want. And a lot of cities don't have that. A lot of bigger cities than Buffalo don't have that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can get like home style Chinese with like a menu of things that you've never seen on a Chinese restaurant menu. We have like this amazing, like growing African food scene here. So there's like right down the street from me, like I can go get like Ugandan street food, Sudanese street food, like everything just in Buffalo. Like if you want it, Buffalo has it. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, that's very cool to know. Like, because I would say Buffalo is part of the Rust Belt, right?
It is for sure.
That. Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So like even in Cleveland, when I visited, I've seen like a lot of change over the past 5 years. Where when I first went, there wasn't even like a good Mexican food spot,
right?
And now like there's places that have like really good upscale Mexican food, all the way to like a taqueria and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I only say that because my wife is Mexican, so whenever I go out of town, I try to find a cool spot.
Sure.
So, but even in Montreal, I guess because of the growing, like we've had a lot of immigration influx in the past few years. Like same thing. It's been a crazy amount of just different types of restaurants. Like we had Lebanese before, but now we've got things like Turkish cuisine, and we've got even like a lot of like North Central African cuisine coming in. Which is great. Like because I heard that before I moved here 10 years ago, you can even find a Mexican food spot. So
our coffee scene is starting to follow suit now. Like downtown pretty recently, like a really traditional Turkish coffee shop opened. And then in like the more northern part of the city, more recently, a place called Raha Coffee House opened, which is like a Yemeni owned coffee house that like, and they serve like traditional Yemeni like pastries and baked goods, amazing coffee, amazing other drinks. And they were doing super cool stuff like during Ramadan, staying open until like 3 a.m. so that the local Muslim community could come after sundown and things like that. So now we're like starting to have this blossoming multicultural coffee scene as well, following suit with the food scene.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I'm very jealous of, because we honestly don't have that very much. And that like Buffalo's quite a bit smaller than Montreal, I would say. I think it's probably like half the size or so. But like that compact nature allows like those one spots to really have like a growing community. Yeah. Because it's not really oversaturated, I guess.
Yeah. So, for sure.
Do you fuck with the Turkish coffee though?
I do. Yeah.
It's not too like grainy.
No, I can get down with it. I can also, we have another place here called Remedy House that's like, for lack of a better term, like very gentrified coffee, but it's super, super good. And they do a thing, they call it a cafe bom bom. And it's like kind of a classic, like Thai or Vietnamese iced coffee, so it's like double shot of espresso, sweetened condensed milk over ice. I love that a lot. That's one of my rare times when I'm drinking coffee with any kind of milk or cream in it, because usually I'm just going straight black. But that's like super good. So yeah, I'm down to try, different coffee styles from different cultures for sure.
That the Cafe Bom Bom is a hit. That shit is crazy. Yeah. I can't have too many of those because
they'll give you a heart attack.
Straight up.
Yeah. Between the sugar and the sweetened condensed milk and all the espresso, like it's just hits your arteries.
straight to the heart.
Yeah, for sure.
Give me your hardcore origin story.
My hardcore origin story. So I grew up in a town called Wellsville that's like a little over an hour south of Buffalo, kind of like down in the sticks. And like growing up, like I think like a lot of people our age, like I was a skater kid. So, I was into punk and like I was, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtracks were like big for me with music like that. And then like 30 minutes away from Wellsville, there was a small city called Olean that had a pretty good hardcore scene at the time for being like a small kind of insulated, like regional place. So I would like go to shows there and stuff and like met a lot of people there. But then when I was probably like 14 or 15, I met Donnie Arthur, who plays in Space, also plays in Final Dec. And at the time he was like, he'd been in Cute Is What We Aim For and like some other bands. But then he had joined, there's this band called By Autumn's End that, not a terribly long-lived band. They were on Hand of Hope, which is like a subdivision of Eulogy. And for lack of a better term, they were playing that like Southern metalcore style that basically E-Tid made popular. And he was the singer of that. And I had like started going to like By Autumn's End shows, like getting my mom or somebody to like drive me up to Buffalo and like drop me off and me stay the night at like Donnie's house, his parents' house, and like go to the shows, whatever. And then after maybe like a year or so of that, we used to have a venue here called the AmVets Post 13, which was like in like 2000, let's say 2006 to like, or 2005 to 2008 ish was like the spot where all the shows were. And he was like, I'm going to this show there, like you should come. And it was Rhinoceros was playing, and X Never Again X from Ohio was playing from Cincinnati. I want to say maybe like Shere Khan from Boston was on the show. And like, I think The World We Knew was on it. And he was like, just so you know, like, this is like very different than going to like, like one of the scene shows, whatever. And I was like, that's cool. And I went to that and I was just like, I was hooked. And then that became a thing where like I met all my friends, like so many like lifelong friends now that I have from Buffalo there. And that put me on the trajectory of like, when it got time to apply to colleges, like I knew I wanted to go into graphic design and I knew Buffalo State had a good graphic design program. And I just wanted to be in Buffalo and be like there on the ground with the hardcore scene there. So I just applied early admission to Buff State, like didn't apply to any other schools. Just like, I'm going to go there. And that's what I did. And then it was like, when I was a freshman in college was right at the time that the funeral home started up. So, I got to be there for like the entire run of the funeral home and like the legendary status that became, not just here, but like in the world of hardcore. Like that, there was that period like 2009 to like 2012 where like every band knew that like, all right, we have to route our tour through Buffalo and play the funeral home. It's like every single tour came through and it was totally DIY. It was literally an old funeral home with like punks that lived upstairs running it. But like everybody, Trapped Under Ice played there, Terror played there, Bane played there, Earth Crisis, H2O, Down to Nothing. Like everyone played there. So I got to be there for like that whole run of that. And yeah, that's like there's a more winding path that, went there. And like, when I was in high school and I was still down there in the Southern tier, like I was like trying to do whatever I could to like get hardcore heavy music around me there. So like I was booking shows from time to time. I think the craziest one was I somehow booked, there was this little town 5 minutes from where I was from called Sayo. And when I say little, I mean the average graduating class there is probably like 30 kids.
Oh my God.
And at the time there was this like youth nightclub called Club Boomers that one side of it was like an arcade and like diner and pizza. And then the other side was like nightclub. Right. And they had a DJ and it was like a shitty nightclub, but for teenagers. And I like approached them and asked if I could book this show there because I had gotten a message on AIM out of the blue from Tony, who sings for American Me, that he had like heard from someone that like I was a good guy. Maybe I'd want to do a show for this tour they were doing. And it was American Me headlining. I wrestled a bear once and the opener was Stray from the Path. I think it was their first full US tour. And I booked it at this teen nightclub that literally had farmland next to it in the middle of nowhere. So like I was getting my hands dirty and like stuff like that. And then that evolved into the like getting to Buffalo and just like planting the flag in Buffalo and been here ever since.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Booking Iwabo as like your first show essentially, or
Dude,
one of your first shows.
And Straight from the Path being the opener, who's like now Straight from the Path is like gigantic.
And one of the, in the top tier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And at the time it was just like, I loved American Me at the time.
Yeah.
Like I loved that first record so much. Like Heat, I still love Heat. I think it's a great record. Like in that era of metalcore, like it almost doesn't get better. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'll book it. And like, that was that. And I'm still friends with Tony to this day. It's really funny.
That's crazy. So yeah. You were a scene kid.
I was. So that's, so I grew up in a household where I was kind of raised to find like the value in like all music. Mm-hmm. This is like sort of humble braggy, but it's important to note. My great uncle, my grandma's brother, who also grew up in like a little Western New York town, he ended up being the lyricist in a songwriting duo that wrote like some of the most famous songs ever. Like he has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like he won 3 Oscars. Like he wrote the Christmas song Silver Bells. He wrote Que Sera Sera. He wrote Mona Lisa. He wrote the song To Each His Own. So when you hear people say like To Each His Own in speech, like he wrote that originally. So that was like the foundation I grew up with, was just that like music is important. And my mom, both my parents, you know, I grew up around a lot of classic rock, some like classic country, blues, all of that. And then when I started like finding stuff to get into myself, like, you know, I was a little like skate punk and I loved like Rancid and Bad Religion, MXPX and NoFX and shit like that. But I was also like, there's no shame in it. Like I was into Chiodos and I was into like, you know, that whole wing of things. Like I thought Enter Shikari was so cool when I was younger. So like, yeah, I came up through all the scene kid stuff as well. And like, I know for a while that was sort of like a dirty word type thing. And like everybody wants to front like they came out of the womb with like a copy of Floor Punch on Gold in their hand. But like, at least for me, like that's just not true. Mm-hmm. I was kind of into everything, and like the scene stuff is what led me to hardcore.
Thank you for shamelessly saying that.
Yeah. Who gives a shit, man?
For real.
Yeah. It's like, and I still like some of that stuff, like for the nostalgia factor, like I'll still throw that stuff on from time. Like I was listening from First to Last the other day. Like, I don't care. I still like it.
Yo, Baby, You Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek. It still hits.
Yeah. Yeah. Breakdown's great.
It still hits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can sing along with Craig Owens, bonus points.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, that doesn't make it, you know, that like doesn't negate, you know, how much I love Judge. It's just, I can like both things.
It's yes,
you know?
And how about that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to be, you don't have to be no, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I thank you for also throwing in the bonus of Donnie being in Q Is What We Aim For, because I did not know that.
Yeah, he actually, so I this is a funny story. I remember when the By Autumn's End record dropped, no one was doing records then, when the CD dropped, and you know, it was in like FYE and everything. Mm-hmm. They put a sticker on the packaging that said like featuring former members of Cute Is What We Aim For. And he was just like so bummed on it at the time. So he's like, this is going to make people not want to listen to this band.
Dude, it's so funny because I'll take the aux cable in the van sometimes, and I'll just throw on my Scene Days playlist, like my Raw XD playlist to drive. Yeah, my
dude, Donnie's origin story is crazy because like he was in Cute Is What We Aim For. he had this like one man acoustic thing that he called Talking in My Sleep that was like sort of like Bright Eyes type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was the singer of Life Ruiner for a while. Like he did a couple tours singing for Life Ruiner.
I didn't know that either. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then By Autumn's End and all of that. So like Donnie has lived the life in this music shit from all angles.
He's got a resume. That's crazy.
He does. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe in a few months we'll have to have Donnie on to
unpack his sordid history.
That's going to be like a 2-part episode because I'm going to be like, so when y'all were writing this song, what was on your mind? That's great. I still will throw on Cursive Curves every now and then. And
it's a great record, undeniably.
Really is though. It doesn't age well, but
yeah, a lot of things from that era don't, but like musically it's great.
Still hits.
Yeah, for sure.
Final Declaration.
Yeah, so my first band.
Is it really? So I wanted to know.
Yeah, first band that started when I was 28 years old. I've just always been in the like booking shows wing of things in the scene, and never really had interest in starting a band. And then I think it was like Donnie's idea, like 2018, was like, we should start a band with you singing. Like, we've got this young kid, Ron, who could like play drums. He's a really good drummer. And it's funny because I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, I think I want to do something like in the style of like 100 Demons, maybe. And then we just didn't do that at all. Not even a little bit, which is really funny. But yeah, we like came together, and it was that first summer, like just like getting together in Donnie's basement, and we would just like, they would, the two of them, like Donnie would just like whip out a riff and Ron would start drumming, and like 10 minutes later there'd be a finished song. And all of a sudden we had like 10 tracks together, and I wrote lyrics. And what we ended up doing was we went into the studio and we recorded that entire first LP before playing a show or before even telling anyone we were doing a band. Like only a few of our friends knew we were doing this. It was like just very quiet, and we just recorded a whole LP because we were like, we've got all these songs, like maybe this never goes anywhere. Like, why don't we just put them all out? And so we recorded the LP, and then we sat on it for a second, and then we got offered for our first show to be Rotting Out was on tour. It was like Knock Loose, Rotting Out, Stick to Your Guns, and Candy, I think was the tour. And there was I don't think it was actually an off date. I think it was in Toronto that night, but Rotting Out couldn't go to Canada.
Yeah.
So they played at Mohawk Place in Buffalo. Like they had a show lined up, and we got asked to play it. And I think we played like third on the bill too, which is funny for our first show. That definitely like ruffled some feathers because the flyer dropped and people are like, who the fuck is Final Declaration and why are they playing mid bill? Like, what's going on here? And so that was how we announced that we were a band. So like we played this first show and all our friends came, and it was a fucking war zone. We didn't have anybody film it, because that was in the days when like everybody wasn't like, there wasn't someone filming every show like there is now.
Yeah.
And I wish we had, because it was like a straight up bloodbath. It was really cool, but we played that first show and then we were like, yeah, and we're going to drop a record like in December. So here you go. And we just like hit the ground running from there, basically.
Y'all are madmen. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, like we never put out a demo. We never even did an EP. Like we've put out 2 LPs.
Yeah. That's like, I'm going through the discography. I'm like, these guys are fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. Like 2 LPs, no label.
Yeah. So Fight to Survive was put out by, there's a small label out of Rochester called Sawyer.
Yeah. That
Jared, who owns that, I grew up with in the Southern Tier. Actually, he was from a town like 20 minutes from me. And he was like, are you guys like doing any new music? Like I'd love to put something out. And I'm like, yeah, we're like recording another LP right now. If like you want to get that pressed to put it out. And he said, yeah. And obviously that record was cool too, because it was kind of like, I kind of just like took a shot in the dark and like asked a few friends if they would want to do vocal spots on it. So like, that's how we got Brody King on it.
Yeah.
Ace is on it from, Breakaway at the time, Mutually Assured Destruction now.
Mm-hmm.
And then Taylor Young does a guest part on it. Taylor also mixed both of our records. So we recorded both of them in Buffalo, but Taylor mixed both of them. Taylor's a close friend. He's married to one of my best friends now. And it was just, kind of like a natural thing. Like, hey, like we're doing this stuff. Like, would you mix this for us? He's like, yeah, absolutely. So, he put his flourishes on things for sure. And then when it came time for the second record, I was like, would you also want to do a vocal part? Because like, I love Disgraced. Disgraced is like such a good band.
Yeah.
He hates doing it. He hates fronting a band, but Disgraced is so cool. And he was like, yeah. And it just worked.
That's what I'm like looking at the features on Fight to Survive. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
How is fucking Brody King and Taylor Young on this record?
Dude, well, what's really funny is the Brody part, like this is some deep lore. He was moving out of California at the time. And we had he knew like he was going to do the spot, whatever. But like, Taylor texts me and he's like, hey, Nate's coming over for dinner tonight. Cause like the move is tomorrow. I know that like you're still recording, but like if you can even just have Jay Zubricki, that's who recorded the record here in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Jay's a fucking mastermind. He's recorded a bunch of records that people love. He's like, if you can have Jay just even send me a rough of the track when Nate comes over for dinner, we'll just record his spot like before dinner. So that's what ended up happening, which is like a rough mix. And then like 3 hours later, Taylor just like sends me a video like shot with his phone of his computer screen with the part playing. And like my jaw just dropped because it sounded so fucking cool. And I sent it to everybody. And I think we all spent like the next few days just like watching and listening to that video like over and over and over. Cause we're like, he took what we wrote and just like put his own flourishes on it and just, made it a Brody King part. And it just sounded so fucking sick.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And like with the lyrics on that record, cause I know that like that was a little bit after like the whole kind of BLM blow up in 2020 and stuff like that. And like, but those lyrics are so good, like with the music, cause in beatdown and that style of hardcore, it's not always like message forward. It's usually just like, smooth brain, dumb vocals to make mosh riffs,
which I love.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love that shit. Like I am a caveman at heart. But yeah, these first two records, like definitely a lot of sort of heady political stuff, like put in with just like ass kicker riffs.
Yeah. Like Stone Ghosts, like coming from Savannah, that song especially means like so much to me when you walk around and you've got like fucking main monuments and like the park paid for by like the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Yeah. That's why I asked Ace specifically to do that part on that song, because, he's from Richmond, like, and that was like at the center of it. I mean, that when we put out the Stone Ghost single, the artwork I did for it is literally that photo of that, I think it's Jefferson Davis statue in Richmond, like spray painted,
and then pulling it down and like throwing it into the river and shit.
Yeah. So I was like, I want you on a song. And I wrote this song that's basically saying like, fuck the Confederate South. And Ace is like, yo, let's go.
Yeah. So I was really, really refreshed when those songs were coming out. And like, it's all like super political, like anti, anti basically MAGA, anti whatever happened on January 6th, which happened like after the whole thing was even out.
Yeah, I mean, fuck fuck all of that. fuck all those people straight
For
up.
real.
That's not to say that like I think Democrats in this country are blameless, because they're not.
Nope.
And there like is some truth to just the like both major parties don't actually give a shit about us. Like that's like on a base level, that's very true. But like, I can relate to and understand and like have a conversation with people who are Republicans who have like conservative leaning viewpoints, because like just like anything in the world, like ideology is a spectrum. But like I can't get down with these like MAGA hat, like edgelord, like racist dipshits. Like that's just, I draw a hard line there.
Yeah. That's like, not to demonize anybody like from where I'm from, but
well, you can demonize them because a lot of them should be.
Yeah, that's true. But it was a tough time having conversations with certain family members, and
yeah,
then,
oh, dude, I a lot of like old friends, people I grew up with, just like no contact anymore. So I was like, oh, well, all right,
yeah,
well, I guess that's that.
Dropping a lot of friends on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. Thinning the herd.
Just dropping Facebook altogether.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that the lore was established, because I needed to know how were all these people on this record, and why isn't it bigger than it was? Like I needed.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I mean, it got a decent amount of buzz, when it came out. It's just one of those things where like the trajectory of the band's been interesting, because like we came out of the gate hot. We put out that first record, we played that first show in November 2019, put out the record December, played our record release like January 2020, and had like a bunch of stuff lined up. And then obviously we all know what happened. So that like killed that. And then, we put out Fight to Survive, and, we went and like played out a bit. We went and played in like the Northeast. Like we did like a weekend run with, they were called First Day Out from Atlanta at the time. Now it's Deal With It.
Yep.
We did that, and, went and played some other places and stuff. But it's just, we're not a band that could ever commit to like full-time touring, or even more than like a weekend at a time. And when you're like not fully like, there's certain bands that can do that, like Trail of Lies does that and it works, but like Trail of Lies has been established for years kind of thing.
Right.
So it's one of those things, but it ebbs and it flows, and it's like, we're blessed. Like most of the shows we play still are like really good reaction. We're writing some new stuff now. We're, going to put some new music out eventually and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of a thing where like, it's a when we want to do it kind of thing. And we're doing it, because we love it and we're all friends.
Yeah. I like that energy a lot. It's more like, this is my outlet, and it's not pressure on like, we got to put out music, we got to make a time frame. Like it's more like, let's have fun for this time, put it out, whoever fucks with it. Yeah.
And like, at this point, like I've known Mark, our bassist, for close to 20 years at this point. Same with Donnie. And Ron now is like, over the last 5-6 years, become like one of my closest friends. Yeah, I love those guys, and whatever we do together, I'm down with.
Hell yeah. So writing new music, I saw that y'all just played like a week ago. Y'all did that Haywire, No Warning show.
Yep. We did that. We're going to chill a little bit, probably not play for the rest of the summer. Maybe come back early fall, late September, early fall. Just, see what pops. We've got some stuff like lined up for that time frame that's not announced yet, that we're going to play then, and just, you know, kind of see where it goes, kind of just like refresh, rejuvenate, stuff like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the summer.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a ton of shows coming up in Buffalo. I've got a few booked, and like most of the hardcore stuff now, like me, Lexi, Donnie, and Brett, who sings for Exhibition, like we all kind of just like tag team everything. So we've got some stuff coming up, some cool tours coming through Buffalo and stuff like that. So
hell yeah. Well, Evan, this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing all of your hardcore history and scene background.
Yeah.
I vibe so much when I have the scene kids on, because that was my shit too. I had the razored hair and the skinny pants and the colorful belts and
going to Warped Tour moshing, you know,
like Reptar moshing,
absolutely,
hell yeah,
100%.
I just have one last question for you before we wrap up. What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
So are you talking like favorite city for coffee and favorite city for like bands?
You could do it that way. You could do that.
What's the intent you're trying to, like, what are you trying to get out of this?
Like maybe most memorable coffee experience with like most memorable show, I guess. But it's hard to do. You kind of have to disconnect them, I feel.
Yeah, interesting. So maybe like the most memorable show for me was Foundation's last show in Atlanta.
Oof.
I took it, like, I literally day tripped it. Like I flew out that morning and then flew back at like 4 a.m. after the show, just like round trip to Atlanta in one day. But I don't know if I drank coffee there, because I went to World of Coke to tour. Like, you know, we like did the Coke thing. And I drank a ton of Coca-Cola.
As you should.
Yeah. So I guess, all right. So this is a good answer. It's going to sound strange. It's New York City. And that's because when Body Count first came back and they did their record release at Gramercy Theater, I went to that show as Body Count, Madball, Wisdom in Chains in New York City. And La Colombe is like one of my favorite coffee entities anywhere. And obviously that's a New York thing at its roots. So I guess that, because I, you know, in that trip, I saw Body Count and Madball and drank La Colombe coffee.
I mean,
but
that's a good one.
Yeah. And then there's, you know, like I've got favorite coffee spots in like a bunch of cities. Like in California, in the Valley, like Van Nuys area, there's a spot called House Roots Coffee that Taylor took me to. That's like one of the best cups I have ever had. That's where I had a cold brew with tonic water for the first time.
Hell yeah.
And that was super dope. Obviously I love getting Dunkin' in Boston. Because I mean, it's just,
the right place.
Yeah, it's what it is. In Chicago, like there's like a local chain there, Dark Matter, that like I really like. That I'm down with that. So like, you know, I love going places and trying the coffee too.
Yeah.
In Richmond. Oh, you know what? This is fucking stupid. Okay. Sorry. The answer is Richmond, Virginia. Because Richmond is like my favorite city that's not Buffalo. Memorable shows. I mean, any of the United Bloods, the Breakaway last show with like Brace War and Division of Mine, Naysayer, like all those shows incredible. And there's a coffee shop there called Lamplighter that everybody goes to, and their iced Thai coffee the caffeine in it will like ruin your day, and it's fucking incredible. And that's one of my favorite coffee drinks anywhere. So Richmond is my favorite city for beans and breakdowns.
Fuck yeah. Richmond is people need to know about it. It's I feel like since United Blood is not there anymore, like it's kind of known more for punk at the moment, but I know that there's tons of hardcore from there.
Richmond's hardcore scene is like permanently dope.
Mm-hmm.
It never, like, places go through lulls. Richmond never goes through a lull. Like, Richmond always has dope bands. They always have huge shows. The Warehouse is awesome. Back in like the 2012-ish days, Richmond and Buffalo had like a real connection because like Malfunction had people from Richmond in it for a while and was like touring with bands from Richmond. So like bands from Richmond would always play here, and like Malfunction would be playing in Richmond, and we would just go to Richmond for shows a lot. So there was always like that connection between like, you know, like Ace and those guys and like us. And like Ace is still one of my close friends to this day. You know, shout out him and Matt and Form of Passion. But yeah, Richmond has dope coffee and a hardcore scene that like never fades.
Hell yeah. Shout out Richmond.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Evan, thanks so much for chilling.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Evan for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Fight to Survive, the most recent release from Final Declaration, available on all streaming platforms. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.